Okay, so I had some of your classmates come in today with some questions about your in the day of the live video. So what I wanted to do is go over a little bit of things on what this roughly should look like, how I see it a little bit in my head. And so what I want you to look at is that on this PowerPoint, this is generally how your video should run, where there's a start to a day, there's the meat of the stuff you're going to talk about, and the end of the day. And this doesn't necessarily have to be, again, one full day, but certain aspects, and you're taking from start of that day to the end of a day, okay? Overall, while each of your students are going to be in one concentration, remember that they are representing the actual department as a whole. So I would expect to see a small presence, a little overtone, maybe the umbrella, the pyramid, kind of inverted pyramid style, where it's understood and there's some presence of the department, but then you bring it down to that specific major concentration in that way, and that's where the focus of the video goes. One thing that you have to remember on this is that while you're going to capture all the neat things the student's doing on various different days in your video, don't forget that your main focus, the foundation of your video, is going to stem from this idea of your category goals, determining what that goal is for that student. Is it, maybe it's for a student in food science, the reason they came into the department was to stop hunger. I don't know, maybe something like that. Animal science, it was maybe they're a vet and they wanted to stop animal suffering, different things. It could be ag communications where they wanted to stop the silence in ag and increase something. The idea is that pick one of those category goals and then make sure that that's your foundation. Everything that you talk about with that student some way ties back to that main goal as you take them through that day. So another question is you say on the rubric that it has to be in the morning, afternoon, and night. And yes, that's kind of what I'm looking for a little bit in terms of parts of the day, but it doesn't have to be so defined. And so the idea is, first, let's do this, is that what I want you to do is that the majority of your video should be primarily regular interview style with B-roll over it, okay? It is a regular video in that sense. But what I want you to do is I want you also to make this like an in the day of the life video where it separates itself. It's distinguished from the norm. I don't want it to be the typical video. And so what we do have is that our secondary footage is looking more like unscripted, uncontrolled environment to capture that personal and genuine elements of the video. If we just did a regular interview in a B-roll, it doesn't distinguish itself from any other video that we've created. So remember that we want this to be a little bit personal to where we step out of that. And I'm going to show you a few examples as it goes with that. But if we're talking about the start and the meat of your video and then the end, one example that I was talking with your classmates is maybe the start starts off with an interview, and I'll show you the ballerina one that's a good example. It starts off with the interview and it has some B-roll, and then it captures some aspect of the beginning of that student's day. And then you work your way talking about the different experiences. Again, you have to find a way to craft this story so it flows. It's still grounded by that category of goals, and it's keep moving along until you get to the end of the day. Maybe there's some middle part of the day where, so the starts, maybe they're getting ready or something, who knows. Then the middle of the day, maybe you catch them in the middle of a class, but it still relates to some of the things they're doing in that category of goals. And then by the time you get to the end of the day and you've worked through all those different things they're doing, that end of the day may ultimately come back to them with their friends and hanging out, but it still captures some aspect of that experience, of that goal, and for that student. And so you're taking them through these different elements of this. And one of the things I was saying is that with this, you're going to have to be creative. It's not going to be easy. There's no definitive outline exactly how this should go. But the big things I want you to remember is that there should be some secondary element beyond just the primary element of unscripted, uncontrolled environment that you capture. And so it does seem personal and it does seem genuine. With your creativity, what I'm really looking for is for you to step outside the box. So be creative, think big, but I want you to stay inside the room. And the room is kind of what my vision is for the video. So be creative, but make sure we're capturing roughly what an in the day of the life video should look like. So let's take a look at some examples and some characteristics that I thought were done well. Okay, so these are a few of the examples that y'all actually posted, and I thought was some good aspects. So these first few videos I'm going to show you, I thought that they did a good integration of the personal aspects of that video I'm looking for, with still the primary scripted version where we have someone in a controlled environment. We're working with their responses and what we want them to say, kind of a deal, and with that B-roll. And so this is this one's the life of a professional ballerina.
You leave home at a very, very young age. Most of us, 14, 15 years old, we come and we live in the dorms and we're on our own, and it's all for us to pursue becoming professional ballerinas.
So we've started off this video. It's typical. It has that regular, like we do normal video. But what we're going to see a little bit here is that as we come right about here, the video changes a little bit and has a little bit of the personal aspect sprinkled in there. The visuals are in her regular life. She's doing it as you're recording it. You can hear the audio in there as well. I think that's one of the indicators of that personal aspect.
So I'll wake up and I'll make myself breakfast, and then I will sit down and maybe watch some TV or do some school if I have time. The last time.
And then after they get rid of that personal, they go back. And so you can sprinkle some of that. But right now it's taking us a little bit in her beginning of the day kind of an idea. So let's go take a look at this competitive eating video right here. So same idea. This has a regular interview style with B-roll. But then you're going to see some personal aspects that step out of the controlled environment and go a little bit into the uncontrolled.
Welcome to the annual weigh-in ceremony for the Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest.
The weigh-in's just a fun way to get everybody together for some nice visuals and also address media questions. We're within 24 hours of actually taking the stage, so this is when it starts to feel really real.
39 people have really worked hard to qualify to be at the finals. Nathan's is the only competition where men and women compete separately.
What do you say to people who say, oh, it's disgusting?
But it's competitive eating, not competitive prettiness.
Right, so mixture, again. And here's the last one I'm going to show you on this aspect. Same thing.
It is detective work, but I would have to admit, really, it's just raw luck in a lot of cases.
This is the unknown piece. This is John found this piece.
Gus
I
McGee's
thought it
one
was
that found it.
extinct, but Gussie McGee had it.
I feel 100% total obligation. I'm the caretaker, and this is what we're working to save.
Right, so see how they do that? Now, so those are 3 good examples of how they've integrated the personal aspects of this person's life with the scripted version. Now, besides that, I'm going to provide you these links. There's 2 other links here that I think have captured a little bit of some ideas that you could add that would maybe sprinkle some that personal touch, that personal elements, while still staying true to maybe your regular narration, and have a little bit of a mixture. And so we take a look at this one. This is actually a week in the life at the University of Tennessee. But this student, same thing. Well, okay, first of all, this is a real in the day-to-day life where they're just following the person around. I don't think that's what we're looking for. That's not the focus here. The first three I showed you, I think, have a mixture of what we're looking for. But this gives you a little bit of idea of where you see some of the personal aspects, things you can think about.
On the bus, we love chemistry. Guys, I just got this new Starbucks drink.
And so to some extent, it is the interviewee talking to the viewer in that sense, right? You'll see some looking at the camera, that kind of idea. They can either be looking at the camera like this, in the eating one, competitive eating, they're not looking at the camera, but you're still catching them in real life, that kind of a deal. And this one's in the day-to-day life of the Yale student. I don't think this is a great video, but it gives you some idea of how you may use some transitions in terms of how they're moving through campus or something like that, where it actually is going on scene and it doesn't seem like it's recorded, but more of a live feel.
I'm wrong place as I pled my case. You're the judge, oh no, set me free. You're the judge, oh no.
What? I'm sorry.
Much more I can take, baby. So would you leave now?
Just some ideas. I'm going to post all 5 of these clips underneath the script in the day of life script examples, and y'all can take a look at these. And just to give you a heads up on some of the things I'm seeing in the scripts that I'm grading now, is that I'm looking for that detail. If you haven't done your pre-interviews, you're not going to have the details that I'm looking for, in the sense that I want you to lay out this video for me. I want you to include the questions you're asking, but I also want to see roughly what the responses are going to be, because if you've done your pre-interview, you already know. So it may be the idea of, I want them to talk about this because you already know they've experienced it. So that pre-interview is extremely important, because part of knowing of what they're going to say to some of your questions is also exactly what you plan to the B-roll you plan to show. You don't know what B-roll you plan to show until you know what they're going to say roughly. So those pre-interviews, I can tell if you've done those pre-interviews, if you have blanket B-roll shots and it's nothing specific to what they're discussing, and you don't have those details in audio and visuals, video, that stuff stands out. And that's, I'm not looking for, I want the details. So you need to have completed your pre-interviews to actually write your script. All right. So I hope this has helped. If you have questions, ask. But I think this gives you a better idea of what's expected out of you as it relates to your in the day of the life video.